Hello, namaste, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Just doing a little bit of cleansing before I get started. I love to cleanse my energy and ask spirit. For those of you who don't know, this is Palo Santo. It is a sacred plant and it is just yummy. It smells yummy. I just love it. But it's also very cleansing of your spirit and your aura, and it removes any bad energies that are around you, which I typically like to do several times a day because we, as energies ourselves, absorb other energies that are around us. And yes, that is positive and negative energies and indifferent energies, and they sometimes attach themselves to us. And so, I generally try to cleanse my energy so that I am not uh, bombarded by negative energies. So, yeah, that's what I was doing. Welcome to today's affirmations. I am Chi, and this is Divine Vibrations with Chi. And like I always say, Chi, if for those of you who don't know, stands for divine energy, and that we all are, not just me, everybody, every single being, creature, plant, even a rock. And this is my Shiva Lingam stone, and it holds some very auspicious properties believed by the Indian people. It can only be found in India uh, by a specific riverbed, and as you can see, it's got a very beautiful shape. It's like an egg shape. It's indicative of earth and birth and life. And I love my Shiva Lingam. I often sit and when I meditate, I often hold on to my Shiva and try to draw from it some divine guidance. Anyway, so this week I actually was kind of thinking this weekend, somebody on my personal Facebook page was talking about ego and actually connected me to another Facebook stream page, and they were talking about the ego and of how to let go of our ego. And that got me really thinking a lot. And the idea of ego, or what we see as a sense of ego and id, and that whole perspective and philosophy is something that is not new to me. I not only learned about it in high school, but in college in my philosophy classes, and went into lengthy discussions with a lot of different people about the idea. And we have a lot of philosophers who have written on the topic. Ancient philosophers and current day philosophers, right? And ego actually is multi-layered, because you can have an ego of self, but our communities have a sense of ego as well. Our countries have a sense of ego as well, and identity. And it's actually super multi-layered, right? And our sense of self has some connection to our, it's really hot today. But our egos are also connected to our sense of community as well, and that makes up what our ego is. But before I go into that topic, and I want to talk a little bit more about ego and talk about two amazing authors and philosophers who, so one spiritual, Eckhart Tolle, who is amazing in my mind. And also another one that maybe some people know and some people don't know of him, but Friedrich Nietzsche, who was also was beyond beyond his time and is an amazing philosopher that a lot of people don't really give a ton of credit for his revolutionary thought in his time, but also that his perspective holds true today and is severely misunderstood. but whom I love deeply as well, and his teachings. But I'm going to start out today with our daily affirmations, because I always have an affirmation of the day. And I think these are kind of important because I start my day out with affirmations and I like to share them with you. So let's let the universe pick an affirmation for us. Let's see what it says. The universe created me for a reason and I claim it. So actually, that kind of ties into the whole idea of ego, right? And I'm going to come back to that. It's all going to tie in. You'll see. So again, the affirmation is the universe created me for a reason and I claim it. And yeah. So let me first start with my thoughts on Nietzsche that he said. And he says his main thought, the individual himself is a fallacy. Everything which happens in us is in itself something else which we do not know. The individual is merely a sum of conscious feelings and judgments and misconceptions, a belief, a piece of the true life system, or many pieces thought together. So, like I said, not only our individual thoughts, but our community, our country, our sense of, well, decadent sense of the fact that we are conscious beings and we set ourselves apart from everything else that is a being or a living thing on this earth, or perceived to be living thing. There's a unity that does not hold together. We are buds on a single tree. What do we know about what we can become, or what can become of us from the interests of the tree? But we have a consciousness as though we would and should be everything, a fantasy of I and all and not I. So what we perceive ourselves to be ego, and our ego, and Eckhart Tolle, I'll bring this around as well. Eckhart Tolle actually speaks to this, and the not I, right? Things that are not us. And that is a sense of ego and identity as well, because there are things we identify with and things we starkly denounce that we don't identify with, that also makes up our sense of ego. So stop feeling oneself as the fantastic ego. Learn gradually to discard supposed individual discovery, and discover the fallacies of the ego. Recognize egoism as fallacy. So, whatever they may think and say about their egoism, the greater majority nonetheless do nothing for their ego their whole life long. What they do is done for the phantom of their ego, which has formed itself in the heads of those around them and has been communicated to them. And that was from Nietzsche's Daybreaks, Thoughts on Prejudice of Morality. And he says, the opposite is not to be understood as altruism. This would be love of other supposed individuals. So no, get beyond myself and yourself and experience cosmically. So that is, it's kind of like, right? Because if you really think about it, our ego, who we are, who we think we are, who we present ourselves to be, who we make ourselves out to be, how we dress, how we act, how we don't act, how we behave, what we say, all of that is really on display right now, right? Even on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I mean, this is all ego based because we are all trying to exert our egos and our sense of what we think our reality is, who we think we are, individualism, and we're trying to put it all out there for everyone to see. And whether you approve of it or you disapprove of it, and some people look for the approval and some people don't give a shit about the approval, and all of that is ego. And then that individual ego or sense of ego also feeds into a collective ego that we have going on too. And that plays with other collective egos and individual egos. So it's absolutely nuts. So, like, back to my friend's question, like, how do we get rid of a sense of ego? Well, that is easy and not easy. Easy if we try to understand what ego is and why it is irrelevant. As Nietzsche would say, get beyond myself and yourself and experience cosmically. Because in the end, I'm a blip in a timeline. And if you want to look at it as a sense of time, which there's really not a sense of time. Time is made up in our head. Time on a clock is something we as humans made up to quantify a day for our own egos, for our own purpose, for our own day, for our own purpose, because we can't. We had to quantify it because we needed to for our own ego, right? To be able to say, I used my day wisely. Well, that could be debated as to what is considered wisely using your day. But in the grand scheme of things, if you want to look at it from a time frame perspective, my lifespan is but a blip. Like, it really is super insignificant and does not even matter, but it does matter because I'm here and I'm living life and I'm trying to live my purpose and I'm trying to live what I feel maybe the universal power has created me for, and trying to understand what this animal, if you want to look at it, if people want to call it a human or a girl or a woman, whatever label you want to put it on, but really I'm just a organism in this planet or on this planet, which is a rock in the middle of a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. I'm a grain of sand. Actually, I'm smaller than a grain of sand if you look at it from the perspective of a cosmic perspective, right? So what does it matter? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe in a parallel universe, I don't matter. And maybe this is the universe that I don't matter. And in another universe, I do matter. But being conscious of the fact that on a cosmic level, what I do with my day is neither here nor there. And so all of us like create this sense of ego, this imagery, this need to be labeled, this need to be perceived as a certain way, or be understood a certain way, or be loved, or I kind of like what Elsa says, let it go. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things what does matter is, are you living out what you came here and was created to perform? And how do we figure out what that is? I mean, everybody is looking for the reason for being, right? Like, why am I here? Is a big question for many people. What is the reason I was created by the universe, and how do I claim that? My parents wanted me to be, my mom wanted me to be a nurse. My dad wanted me to be an engineer. And I don't know what the hell I want to be. The best organism, grain of sand I can be in the universe. I don't know. A good mom. If that's all I am, then, I have lived out one of my purposes, one of my reasons that I've claimed. I brought three beautiful other organisms into this world and help them thrive and be a part of this and a greater picture. So letting go of my ego, my sense of self, or the need to label or be or manifest that which I think I am for the greater populace. What does it matter? What only matters is that I feel is, am I here doing what I should be doing in the manner in which I should be doing it? And does it fulfill me? And at the end of my journey, did I acquire the knowledge of sense of self that was what was more true to what I am? Because in the end, you know, nobody's going to make a monument to me, and that's kind of decadent of us, right? Like, I think about the Egyptians all the time, and their need for wealth, and their need to be memorialized, right? We do that with having a grave memorial, or a headstone. Here lies John Doe or Jane Doe. Who the F cares? Because Jane Doe is in about, 50 to 100 years just going to be carbon particles in the ground. And the only thing that really matters or even signifies that Jane Doe lies here is a stone that's got something carved in it. And we as human beings have this sense of needing to be memorialized, that ego of needing people to remember us, needing people to know who we are, needing to leave our mark. Many of us have heard that, right? I want to leave my mark. Leave your mark on what? Are we carving our initials into a tree? Hey, and while we're at it, while we're leaving that mark, let's just go ahead and degrade that freaking tree, right? Like, let's just cut into it and make it bleed, just so that we can leave our mark. I just think it's just absolutely ludicrous, some of the things that we do as human beings. And I am no different. I am not an exception to that rule, because I am a part of the collective ego. And I am an individual ego, but I'm also a part of the collective ego that feeds into that kind of way of thinking. And I can choose either to continue to be a part of that, or I can choose to have a different perspective and change my perspective and let go of my ego and not care about being so materialistic and being so needy, of having things, or the need to be memorialized or remembered or recognized. Everybody wants to be popular. Who the F cares about being popular? I don't. I don't do this every day to be popular. I do this every day because I'm hoping that I can share with somebody a different perspective of how important it is for us to let go of ourselves and our need to be important, and that everything's important. We need a more equitable world. Why are we are destroying our world at a breaknecking pace. Like we are killing everything because we think we are better than it. We are reducing our rainforests, our polar ice caps, our fish in the ocean, our simple as bugs on land, that we need. Because even as insignificant as we think they are, they're more significant sometimes than we are, because they actually innately perform their purpose, their reason the universe created them without question, right? They claim it, they own it, they live it. Even if that fly lives for just one day. And we don't, because we have a higher sense of self. So how do you let go of ego? Drop your shit. Simple as that, right? So Eckhart Tolle is like one of my freaking favorite people in the whole world. I just love him. I love him. He's not only just the cutest, sweetest old man, but he is like, in his way of thinking, because he talks about having a new consciousness, a new collective consciousness, a new individual consciousness, being more conscious beings. And he's saying that a dimension of consciousness that we need to have is that humanity right now is having a spiritual awakening. And it's a work in progress because we are decadent, egoistic beings, because we have a sense of consciousness and an ability to be conscious above all other beings, or perceived to be above all other beings, that we think that God created us perfectly, right? The universe created us perfectly, whether you want to call it God or the universe or source or Shiva or Ganesh or Allah, whatever, the energy, the frequency that created us, the energy dimension that created this dimension, right? And we think we were created whole and perfect with Adam and Eve. And that is a fallacy, and it's our misconception, and it's wrong, because we were not created perfect beings. That's the story of making the mistake of eating the forbidden fruit, right? Knowledge, learning from your mistakes, because we weren't created perfect, really. We were always meant to fall. I think. That's my opinion. And I know we want to have this perception that we were perfect in the Garden of Eden, and then we made a mistake. But I think we were always meant to make that mistake. We were always meant to choose the wrong path and then gain clarity from choosing the wrong path. Because there is no such thing as perfect. It's our misperception. Tolle says, we are unaware of the dimension that is deeper than ourselves, and we are trapped in the surface level of reality. We are trapped in our conditional personality, the person, the egoic self, with a knowing that something innate is not right. We innately know something's not right. That's what he says. And that is just profound. That is like, because deep down, we as individuals do know that, right? Like we're all searching. Not a single human being on earth right now can say, yeah, I am. Maybe a few have. Yeah, I think even Eckhart Tolle would say that he's not there. And Tolle says that there's two aspects of ego, right? There's a sense of superiority, the ego that is, I am better than everybody else, and what he calls an exaggerated sense of who they are in a superiority complex, a superiority over somebody else. A prime example of this is some of our leaders, some of our entertainers, that try to be leaders. It's that whole high school hierarchy, right? And that hasn't gone away. In fact, it's greater when we leave high school because the playing field is different, but the rules are still the same. Everybody wants to be the popular one. And then the stark opposite of that, or the second aspect of ego, is what he said is equally as bad as the superiority, is the aspect that of a sense of victimhood, or to play the victim as a sense of ego. And we as people, Eckhart Tolle says, we use whichever's convenient, right? You have somebody that uses the poor me act, and someone that uses the look at me act. And both are equally wrong. I mean, they balance each other out. They're both aspects of the ego, and they both can be used to manipulate not only our sense of self, but others. And Tolle says that we use whichever is more convenient to create a sense of identity, in which is just a thought, and to be trapped in a level of form or a structure of thought. So really, we're stuck in our own heads, right? We're stuck in this idea of self and what we should be and how we should be, instead of just being who we are. So back to my friend's question of how do you let go of the ego? Stop trying so hard. Stop trying so hard to please everybody else, and stop trying so hard to try to be pleased yourself. And rather just be happy with the moment and go with the flow and be in a sense of now. I think a lot of us, when we are not achieving a certain level or whatever, we have a sense of lack mentality, and we think that's that victimhood mentality. Oh, poor me, I don't have this, or I don't have that. I'll never have this, or I'll never have that. Maybe, but what does it matter? It's this whole idea that we are all keeping up with the Joneses, and not only on an individual level, but on a bigger level, on a community level, on a country or nationality level or nationalism. That's why we've turned spirituality into such a, no offense, but a bullshit race. to who's better, right? Who's going to make it to heaven? Well, if people think about it, you could be in heaven right now, heaven on earth. You know, heaven is a sense of being, a dimension that is. And everybody's looking for that place, but people are forgetting that you are in a place. You are in the now. And when we forget to enjoy this now, I think we forget the reason we were created. We miss that whole point. And of course, we're never going to claim it because we're always searching out there or outwardly instead of focusing inwardly. Imagine what this world would be like if everybody was just more focused on being a better sense of self, being more conscious of their own ego versus somebody else's ego. What kind of world would we have if, you know, we weren't worried about what somebody else was doing? Why do they get that? How come they have more? I want more. They should have less. And I think that if we all focused on ourselves and us as individuals, I think we would develop a less selfish perspective. And we would find ourselves being more giving and collectively loving. I don't know. Maybe that's where we're all going. And maybe that's why things are so messed up right now. Because I often say this in my own head, and I don't share this with a lot of people, and I've said it with a couple friends, but I feel like humanity is a teenager right now. We are adolescents as a whole, like humanity as a whole is a teenager. Testing boundaries, rebelling in certain ways, being egoic. But also brave, right? Teenagers are pretty dang brave. They'll try almost anything. I mean, some of them tried Tide Pods for crying out loud, so I rest my case. but we're not even like, we are just struggling with our adolescence of who we are and what we are. And I hope that, and I know, I mean, this world, this planet, this place is going to be here long after you and me are gone. And so many of us are afraid of that, right? Like we're afraid to imagine that. And to me, it's like, well, I'm going to be something else. I'm not worried about what's going to happen to me later. If I spent all my time worrying about what's going to happen to me later, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing right now. Just talking to you on a YouTube channel, you know, talking about my ego, our ego, what we're going to do about it, and why the frick I came here. So it probably didn't answer any of my friend's question. Other than to say that it's time for us as humanity to let go of our ego and strive to be more of that introspective individual that's looking at why it is that we're here. And sometimes taking that pause to look inward is going to be more beneficial to us than, and maybe the first step, right, to finding out that question and how to let go of our ego is to pause. We're all running at 100 miles an hour trying to find some answer. And maybe the answer to everything is in the pause instead of running the rat race. So I'm just going to leave it right there. I am going to pull one. Let's see. I'll pull it out from the Super Attractor deck because this is Gabrielle Bernstein's deck. And I just love her as an author. She writes the book. What is the book that she writes? I actually have it. The Universe Has Your Back. That's it. There's actually 3 cards that flipped over, and so I'm going to read them all. Just because I feel like that's what the universe wants. And then we're going to close. And those are, let's see. When I'm in a state of appreciation, I'm in vibrational alignment with my true love nature. Yeah. And that's the other thing, you know, like people look to other people for love and validation, and you're not going to find it. I hate to burst your bubble, but you're not going to find love and appreciation anywhere else except for in the sense of inward. Nobody is going to validate you as well as you validate yourself and love you as much as you love yourself. So if you don't have a sense of love for yourself, you got to go inward and find that, because you're just not going to find it anywhere else. Yes, you may find another partner, but that partner is also living the same race you are. That partner is also a grain of sand in this world, and they're not perfect, just like you're not perfect or I'm not perfect. And we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to be assholes to ourselves and to each other. And the more we go inward and try to figure out what we're really here for and live that, then the closer we are going to get towards letting go of that ego and being a more loving, caring being and more equitable being in this world. Right? At least I think so. Second one is, I feel my way into faith one step at a time. I like that one. And the last one is, the universe is always conspiring to support me, guide me, and lead me compassionately toward the highest good. Oh, I like that one. Oh, these 3 were meant to come out. Just love it when the universe works that way. So I hope this helped you in some way. Help me talk it through. And I hope you have an awesome day. Namaste.